I'm curious to know how the fiduciary standard is enforced. Is there a government agency or a private organization like the American Bar Association for Lawyers that adjudicates complaints? If a client files a complaint, how is it investigated and who actually investigates? I have to wonder if any client has actually ever successfully claimed that a financial advisor who swore to the fiduciary standard actually did not act in the client's best interest. Does the client win back money in a lawsuit? It seems very gray, and although I've heard dozens of times about the importance of hiring an advisor who's a fiduciary, I've never heard anything about how this fiduciary responsibility is truly enforced. Just curious. Thanks, Jim.
All right, let's talk about fiduciaries and what you do when somebody is not a fiduciary. And guess what? There's a whole lot of parallels to malpractice when it comes to fiduciary duty. What do? You hire an attorney and you sue them. Yes, you can complain. You can complain to FINRA and the SEC, and you can complain to the CFP board, and you can blast them on Google reviews. You can send an email to the white coat investor that somebody on their list didn't do what was right to you. You can do those sorts of things. But for the most part, this is a legal thing. This is governed by tort law, just like malpractice is. And of course, it's state specific. But in order to collect against somebody who had a fiduciary duty against you, you basically have to meet 4 elements. And if you know anything about asset protection, these are going to sound very familiar. The first one is that the defendant was acting as a fiduciary of the plaintiff with respect to the subject matter involved. Were they really a fiduciary, right? If you got financial advice from an insurance agent or something, they're not a fiduciary. So you're not going to meet that criteria. But if they're a registered investment advisor, they held themselves out as a fiduciary and they were, giving you financial advice and performing financial services for you. Yeah, they had a fiduciary duty and they're going to meet that requirement. The second one is that the defendant breached the fiduciary duty owed to the plaintiff, right? In malpractice, this is that they didn't meet the standard of care. But when it comes to fiduciary duty, it's that they breached the fiduciary duty. They sold you something that enriched them and didn't help you, or they just gave you bad advice, okay? The third requirement is that you suffered an injury, right? And typically this means some sort of financial loss. If they give you bad advice and it didn't hurt you, you can't sue them for giving bad advice. You have to actually be hurt by it. And then the fourth element is that the breach of their fiduciary duty actually caused your injuries. There has to be causation. And if you have those 4 points, you have a case against that fiduciary. And you can sue them for your losses, right? I don't know that you can get pain and suffering. I don't know that you can get attorney's fees, but you should be able to sue them for your losses. And guess what? Just like doctors carry malpractice insurance, real financial advisors carry insurance against claims like this. And so, it's not necessarily, you're not necessarily getting the financial advisor's money, you're getting the insurance company's money when you successfully prosecute this sort of a lawsuit. Now, does it have to go that far? No, it often doesn't, right? You complain, you're like, you hurt me, you gave me bad advice and I lost 80 grand, maybe they'll make up that 80 grand to you. But if it's some tiny little business, they might not have 80 grand without going to the insurance company. And so, you may end up having to at least present a claim to the insurance company if you don't go the full lawsuit sort of route. But yeah, you can do complaints, you can do complaints to FINRA and the SEC, and those show up when people search their ADV kind of documentation, ADV2 documents there on those sites. But let's be honest, most people hiring a financial advisor aren't smart enough to go and do that. So just a complaint may not go that far. You may actually have to take them to court. So if it's some tiny loss, it's not going to be worth your while to do that. If they lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, it probably is worth going out and getting an attorney and suing them for it. But that's basically the way the fiduciary duty works. And of course, state tort laws govern all of that. If you want your questions answered by the White Coat Investor, record your question at whitecoatinvestor.com/YQA or click the link in the description.
The hosts of the White Coat Investor podcast are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is free entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.